and welcome to yet another interesting unit in the Technology Integration series. In this unit, we will look at e-learning. In a previous series, we talked about blended learning, which is a combination of online and face-to-face learning modalities. In this unit, we're going back to the roots of online learning. An umbrella term that is used to describe the use of technology for teaching and learning purposes is e-learning. And the E in e-learning simply stands for electronic. So in its simplest form, e-learning is the use of electronic technologies for learning purposes. Over time, several electronic technologies have been used for learning. The radio and television have been used for mass education for a very long time. And at some point, when computers and the internet were invented, technology in education took a whole new level. There was much more flexibility in timing, in place of learning, in pacing, and several other factors. There was yet much more flexibility when mobile devices were added, and this brought about terms such as eLearning and ubiquitous learning. E-learning has had several aliases and implementations. Some of them include distance learning, online education, computer-assisted instruction, computer-based education, computer-managed instruction, computer support for collaborative learning, rich environment for active learning, massive open online course, little open online learning, distributed open collaborative courses, and so on. Whatever the alias, the basic components describing e-learning are technology and learning. The major difference in describing e-learning lies with the level of technological involvement, and this speaks much about the dimensions of e-learning, which have evolved over time. Initially, it started as computer-based e-learning and then evolved to web-based e-learning. In computer-based e-learning, usually the content is stored on a storage device and distributed to students to watch using a computer. So you see, when they watch, they return, and the content can easily be replaced with some other content. So it's not online, it's offline. And then on the other hand, we have web-based e-learning, which requires the use of the internet, and this makes it online. Students can have access to content at any time, and it's way more flexible than the computer-based e-learning. Today, when you mention e-learning, our minds just go straight to online learning because of the benefits associated with online learning. One of the roles of the 21st century teacher, as stated by the International Society for Technology in Education, is designer. What type of designer? A learning designer, an instructional designer. So as an instructional designer, you may be required to design for online learning as well. Now, there are three key elements to consider when designing for online learning. And these three key elements are content, instructional design, and technology. And yes, they do follow that sequence: content, instructional design, and technology. From this sequence, we can observe that technology comes last, and that's because that is its rightful position. Technology is merely an enabler. So we need to pay close attention to the content and how it is being designed before it is served or delivered using technology. So let's begin with the first element, which is content. Well, content is generally about what you want to teach or what the students want to learn. So in order to deliver the right content, you need to identify the instructional goals, from which you can now further break it down into instructional objectives. According to Dick and Carey, there are 4 ways of identifying instructional goals, and these 4 ways are administrative mandates, such as the curriculum, performance technology, content outline, or subject matter expert. One important principle to apply in content development is chunking. Chunking is the process of breaking down learning content into bits or units to be learned at a time. This principle of chunking is also important in the second element, instructional design. Generally, instructional design is the presentation of chunks of content in effective and appealing ways, and there are several instructional design models out there to guide instructional designers in their process of designing instructions. Some models include the ADDIE model, the Seals and Glass Glow model, the Dick and Carry Systems Approach model, the Assure model, the Rapid ISD model, the 4-door model, the SAM model, the Kemp's ID model, and so on. Each of these models have series of steps to follow in the process of designing instruction, but it is important to note that no model is a one-size-fits-all. You should choose your model based on your content and your learners. And then we have the final element, which is technology. So you see, after content comes instructional design and then technology. The technology is merely a tool used to deliver learning to the students. And technology is divided into hardware and software. The hardware are the physical devices we handle, such as our computers, our smartphones, and so on. And then we have software, which are used to operate this hardware. Software fall into very large categories, and there are several examples. You have different platforms where you can upload learning content and access learning content. But when you need a platform for a holistic learning experience, it is good to make use of a learning management system. A learning management system is simply an online platform that supports web-based teaching and learning. With a learning management system, you can generate learning materials, you can track learning materials, you can dispense learning materials, and manage its continuous use over time. Some terms similar to learning management systems and sometimes used interchangeably are course management system, virtual learning environment, and learning content management system. There are three broad categories of learning management systems, and they are open source, proprietary, and cloud-based. These three categories have their advantages and disadvantages, or should I say pros and cons. So let's begin with the open source LMS. The open source LMS is usually free, although there are some hidden costs, such as installation costs. But then, one of the advantages is that an open source LMS is built by a collaborative community. Different persons come together to build the LMS. However, the LMS may become unreliable, especially when a knowledgeable member of the community leaves the project, and then it takes time for that gap to be filled. One pro about an open source LMS is that the source code is available, and this makes it very easy to customize. Moving on to the proprietary LMS, it requires payments before it can be used, and oftentimes it is quite expensive. But then, a proprietary LMS is really reliable. It has restrictions, and this places limits on customization. And finally, for the cloud LMS, there's a low initial cost, but later costs are made transparent, and then it is highly scalable. Whether you want to step it up or down, you still have the same result. Here are some examples of learning management systems under the three categories. And now, here are some things to reflect on. What category of e-learning have you experienced or used on your students? Was it computer-based or web-based? Have you ever used a learning management system? How effective was it?